Welcome back to Revise and Resubmit, the podcast that takes, those really dense academic papers and makes them surprisingly interesting. I'm Pavlov.
And I'm Nikita.
We've noticed a lot of you are tuning in, which is amazing, but I haven't quite hit that subscribe button yet.
Yeah, and that little button, honestly, it's so small, but it makes such a huge difference in helping us reach more people with these important discussions.
Right. It's true. Like the algorithms, those mysterious forces that decide what we all see and hear, they pay a lot of attention to subscriber numbers.
Yeah, think of it like the subscribing. It's like casting a vote for quality content, So these insightful research discussions don't just get lost in the sea of all the information out there.
More subscribers equals more visibility. Right. And that means more resources for us to make even deeper dives for you.
Yeah.
Maybe bring in experts for interviews, even do some live Q&A sessions where you can jump in.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about building a community around research,
Yeah.
where curiosity thrives and knowledge is like shared and debated. All right, get ready for this. We're going to dive deep into returnee entrepreneurs.
Ooh, returnee entrepreneurs.
Yeah, those folks who migrate, go somewhere else, gain experience, and then come back and start businesses.
Okay.
It's kind of fascinating, right? Like
Yeah.
a global phenomenon.
Interesting.
And we've got a ton of research to unpack here,
Wow.
including this brand new systematic review from Entrepreneurship Theory and Practice.
That's great.
Let's try to figure out what makes these entrepreneurs tick.
It's not as simple as just like deciding to be your own boss.
Yeah.
There's way more to it.
Okay.
It's about the skills and resources they pick up during their time abroad.
So it's not just about the what of entrepreneurship, it's the how,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Shaped by their time away.
Right. I like it. The research breaks it down into 3 different levels.
Okay.
The rules of the game in both countries, laws and policies.
So that's like the institutional level.
Right, exactly. The institutional level.
Yeah.
Then you've got the social level,
Okay.
connections,
Yeah.
networks, cultural influences, and then, of course, the individual,
Yeah.
what you bring to the table personally.
So it's like a 3-legged stool. You got to have all 3 working together
Exactly.
for success, right?
Yeah.
But let's break it down.
Cool.
First, the host area, the place they went to.
Okay.
I always thought of migration as like moving towards opportunity,
Right.
but I'm guessing it's not always that simple.
Yeah, it's usually more complicated than that.
Okay.
Sometimes it's about escaping restrictions back home.
Interesting.
Think like strict immigration laws.
Yeah.
Make it impossible to stay long term.
Right.
That's what you see a lot with Bangladeshi and Filipino migrants.
So it's like a ticking clock
All right.
hanging over their head, pushing them back.
Whether they're ready or not.
Ready or not, yeah.
And that readiness is super important.
Yeah.
Some people get forced back with almost nothing.
Oh.
And that makes it so hard to start a business.
Yeah, that's tough. But I've also heard stories about
Yeah.
how sometimes even being forced back can spark that entrepreneurial spirit
Yes, absolutely.
out of necessity.
Right, when traditional jobs are limited,
Yeah.
starting your own thing becomes the only option.
Interesting.
Researchers call it necessity entrepreneurship.
Necessity entrepreneurship, I like it. It's amazing how different circumstances can lead to similar outcomes.
Right.
Like those Senegalese returnees that were studied back in 2013,
Oh.
they had limited options when they returned,
Yeah.
and it kind of forced them to be resourceful.
Yeah.
But then you've got those highly skilled Colombian returnees who were documented in 2011
Okay.
coming back from Spain
Yeah.
because they couldn't get the capital to launch their businesses over there.
So they came back home.
They came back home.
Interesting.
It just goes to show how diverse this phenomenon really is.
Yeah.
No single path to becoming a returnee entrepreneur.
Exactly.
All right, so we talked about those push factors
Uh-huh.
from the host country.
Okay.
Now, what about those pull factors back home? Obviously, a good economy helps, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Like Romania, for example, they
Right.
had that big economic growth.
Right.
Combined with EU membership,
Yeah.
attracted a lot of returnees,
Makes sense.
especially in those tech sectors.
Right.
And Croitoru's 2020 research found
Right.
that those returnees were like a major contributor
Wow.
to the growth of Romania's IT sector.
That's great.
It's a win-win, right?
Yeah.
The country gets their expertise,
Yeah.
and the returnees find a welcoming environment
That's it.
for their ventures. But what about those government programs
Oh, yeah.
designed to lure them back?
Okay.
Do they actually work?
It's a mixed bag.
Okay.
China, for example,
Yeah.
has invested a ton in initiatives to attract returnees entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
But Studies like Opiniano and Ang's 2023 research on Filipinos returning during COVID found that very few actually used any entrepreneurship-specific support.
Wow. So just having the programs isn't enough.
Right.
Are they not meeting the actual needs of these entrepreneurs?
That's the big question.
Right.
Is there a disconnect somewhere?
Yeah. It seems like a missed opportunity.
It is.
If they're not actually meeting those needs.
Absolutely.
All right. So we've got those push factors, the pull factors. Can't forget about the social side of things.
Right.
You know, discrimination in the host country can push people out.
Yeah.
But strong family ties back home can pull them back in.
Absolutely.
It's like this constant
So push and pull.
Yeah.
A little tug of war.
tug of war between these two worlds.
Exactly.
And it's not just family either, right? I mean, just immersing yourself in a completely new culture
Yeah.
must have a huge impact on your outlook on things.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Especially like entrepreneurial outlook.
Right. You pick up new ways of doing things,
Yeah.
new ideas.
Totally.
There's research on West African returnees from China.
Okay.
Even those who didn't originally plan to become entrepreneurs, they found that their experiences abroad sparked new ideas
Interesting.
and gave them a fresh perspective.
So they come back with a whole new toolkit,
Yeah, exactly.
but they still have to figure out how to make it work
Right.
back home. Right.
In their own context, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not just a copy and paste situation.
So it's like they're bringing the ingredients back,
Yeah.
but they still have to figure out the local recipe.
Perfect analogy.
Right.
Yeah.
To make a dish that everyone will enjoy.
Absolutely.
And those social networks we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
they play a huge role here too.
They do.
Returnees can tap into connections abroad and at home,
Right.
giving them a wider pool of resources,
Absolutely.
potential investors,
Yeah.
even collaborators.
Exactly.
It's like having a foot in both worlds,
Yeah.
a bridge between different markets
A bridge. Yeah.
and opportunities.
Makes sense.
Like those Ghanaian returnees,
Okay.
studied by Harman and Landvang, they tapped into those foreign networks
Yeah.
to access resources, expand their businesses.
That's great.
But it's not always a guaranteed success story, is it?
Not always, no.
Like, research on Polish returnees found that some,
Yeah.
they really struggled to translate those foreign ties
Yeah.
into actual benefits back home.
It happened.
So those local connections, they really matter just as much.
Oh, absolutely.
If not more.
Yeah, don't underestimate the power of local connections.
Right. And remember that returnee liability we talked about?
Yeah.
Time away means losing touch
Losing touch, yeah.
with local practices, regulations, even those little cultural nuances.
Totally.
And that's where family and community, they become crucial.
Oh, yeah.
They act like those anchors,
Anchors, yeah.
providing that network of support to help navigate those challenges.
Exactly.
So it's all about finding that balance, isn't it?
it is.
Between global experience and local knowledge.
Yeah.
But it's not just those external factors, right? Each person brings their own unique set of skills,
Absolutely.
personality, experiences
Well,
to the table.
Individuality matters.
Absolutely. Let's dive into that individual level next.
All right, let's do it.
This is where things get really fascinating.
Okay.
Let's unpack how those personal journeys shape their entrepreneurial path.
I'm ready when you are. Think of the migration experience as an investment.
Like you're pouring time into it?
You're pouring time into it. Acquiring skills, knowledge,
Yeah.
building networks,
Building up that network.
hopefully stashing away some capital.
Oh, yeah, gotta have that capital.
Gotta have that capital.
So it's like building a portfolio
That is,
of assets, but instead of stocks and bonds, it's
Exactly.
like experiences and connections, right?
that's your human capital. Each returnee comes back with this unique portfolio,
Right.
shaped by their individual journey. Pauly and Osowska's research on Polish returnees found that specialized knowledge was a key asset for about half of them.
Okay.
And nearly 60% relied heavily on the savings they accumulated abroad
To launch their ventures.
to launch their ventures, yeah.
It's amazing how different those journeys can be
It is.
and lead to such different approaches.
Absolutely.
I'm curious though, is there like a sweet spot?
Ooh, a sweet spot.
Yeah, in terms of how long someone spends abroad?
That's a good question.
Like, is there a point where the benefits start to decrease?
Yeah, there might be.
Okay.
Research on Chinese returnees
Okay.
by Yen and his colleagues suggests there might be an optimal time frame.
Okay.
They found that those who stayed abroad for 6 to 10 years tended to be the most successful.
6 to 10 years. That's interesting.
Seems like too little time.
Yeah.
Might not be enough to build up those skills and capital.
Yeah, right. You're not getting the full experience.
Exactly.
But then staying away too long.
Yeah, then you lose touch.
You lose touch.
With the home country.
With those connections back home.
The networks start to weaken.
Right. It's like that saying.
What?
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Uh-huh.
But too much absence makes the heart forget.
Oh, that's good.
Right.
Yeah.
So finding that balance is key.
It is.
But I imagine things like gender, age, education.
Oh, yeah, those all play a role.
Play a role too, just like in any other business venture.
Absolutely. Just like in any other.
Okay, so let's unpack those.
All right, let's get into it.
Those individual factors.
Yeah, individual factors.
And how they influence this whole thing.
I'm ready when you are. First up, gender. Unfortunately, a lot of studies have shown this gender gap in return entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that's not surprising, but definitely disappointing to hear.
Yeah, women, despite having similar experiences and skills as men, are often less likely to start businesses when they return.
So what contributes to this gender gap? Is it access to resources, societal expectations, or is it something else entirely?
It's often a mix of things, you know. In a lot of societies, women face more pressure to prioritize family responsibilities.
Right, that makes sense.
And that can really limit their time and energy for pursuing those entrepreneurial goals.
Yeah, it's hard to juggle it all.
It is. And they might also have a harder time getting loans or investments.
Oh, yeah, especially in cultures with those traditional gender roles.
Right, where women's business skills might not be fully recognized.
Or supported, yeah.
Exactly.
It sounds like they're facing an uphill battle, even with all this valuable experience.
They are. And that's where those targeted support programs can really make a difference.
Okay, so what kind of programs are we talking about?
Things specifically designed to empower women returnees, like access to funding, mentorship, and networking opportunities.
So giving them the tools and the connections they need to succeed.
Exactly. It can help level the playing field a bit.
It makes you wonder why these programs aren't more widespread, you know?
Yeah, it really does. It highlights the need for more awareness and a more proactive approach to addressing this gap.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about gender. What about age? Does that factor into a returnee's success?
Research suggests that there might be a sweet spot in terms of age, typically between the late 20s and mid-30s.
Interesting. So not too young, not too old.
Right. It's a period where they've built up some good work experience abroad, maybe saved some money, but they haven't been away so long that they've lost touch with their home country.
Makes sense. So they've got the experience, the resources, and still those connections back home.
Exactly. They're in a prime position to really leverage all of that to launch and grow their ventures.
It's like that Goldilocks zone, right?
Yeah, exactly. Not too hot, not too cold. But of course, this isn't a hard and fast rule.
Right. There are always exceptions.
You see successful returning entrepreneurs in all age groups.
It's more about the drive, the skills, and the right opportunities.
Absolutely. It's about how they use their unique journey, no matter how old they are.
Okay, so let's talk education.
Okay.
Does it play a significant role in returning entrepreneurship, just like in any other business?
Absolutely. Higher education is often linked to a higher likelihood of pursuing entrepreneurship after returning.
Yeah, that makes sense. More education usually means more skills and knowledge, which is always valuable in business.
Precisely. And often it's that combination of formal education and practical experience from abroad that sets them apart.
Right, so they have the theoretical knowledge and the real-world application skills.
Exactly. It allows them to spot opportunities that others might miss.
So they're not just bringing back ideas, they're bringing back a whole new way of thinking.
They are. And they're able to tailor those ideas to their local context.
It's like they're importing knowledge and then customizing it to fit local needs. Pretty cool.
It really is.
So we've talked about the positive side of education. Are there any times where it might actually pose challenges for returning entrepreneurs?
Yeah, that's a great point. While generally education is seen as a good thing, there can be situations where it creates a bit of a mismatch of expectations.
Oh, interesting. What do you mean?
Well, imagine someone who gets their PhD in a very specialized field abroad.
Okay, I'm following.
They might come back home and struggle to find a job that actually utilizes their very specific expertise.
So it's like they're overqualified, or the local market just isn't there yet.
It could be both. And it shows how important research and planning are before making that move back home.
Yeah, they need to make sure there's actually a demand for their skills.
Right, and be open to adapting their expertise to fit the local market.
So flexibility is key.
Absolutely. They might need to get creative and find new ways to apply what they know, maybe even explore different industries.
So it's all about being adaptable and open to new possibilities.
It is. Sometimes it means starting a business that's totally different from what they initially planned.
But ultimately, it's about finding a way to use those skills and make a contribution.
Exactly. To their community, to their home country.
That's inspiring. But it's also important to acknowledge that not every returnee finds success right away. What are some common challenges they face, besides what we've already talked about?
Well, one big one is navigating the cultural differences in business practices.
Yeah, that makes sense. Different cultures, different ways of doing things.
Right, like someone who's used to a very direct communication style in one country might need to adjust to a more indirect approach back home.
Or maybe they're used to faster decision-making processes.
Exactly. Those cultural differences can really impact everything, from negotiating deals to building relationships.
So it's like they have to learn a whole new set of rules, even if they're back on familiar ground.
Exactly. They need to be aware of those nuances and develop that cultural intelligence to navigate them.
So patience, empathy, a willingness to learn from others.
All those soft skills are super important.
It's not just about the business smarts, it's about those people skills too.
You got it. Those interpersonal skills can make all the difference.
Wow, we've covered so much in this deep dive. From those big picture factors like laws and policies to the personal journeys of these entrepreneurs.
It's been a journey.
It really has. We've explored the challenges, the opportunities, all those diverse paths they take to build something amazing.
It's pretty incredible what they do.
It is. But now we want to hear from you, dear listener. What are your takeaways?
What resonated with you? Has this changed how you view entrepreneurship?
We encourage you to keep thinking about this, share your thoughts, your questions.
And maybe even start your own journey, whether it's returning home or exploring new horizons abroad. And don't forget to subscribe to Revise and Resubmit on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you're enjoying the show and want to support us in creating more insightful content, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Every contribution helps us continue this journey of exploration and discovery. Until next time, keep those minds curious, keep questioning, and keep revising and resubmitting.